Okay, welcome to this illegal class. We're on the 13th day of the month of Av. The reason why it's illegal, as we all know, you're not allowed to really learn or to teach classes during Ben Azmani, when there's a break from yeshiva, which from the 9th of Av until the beginning of the next month, which is the month of Elul. So all the yeshivas are on vacation. So anybody caught watching this or anybody sitting here today, know that you might be arrested for participating in this illegal class during vacation from yeshiva. So we're pretty much the only people that are running here Torah classes. So Baruch Hashem.
We're used to being arrested. This crowd is used to being arrested, Rabbi.
Yeah. Don't you know? Okay. We have a lot of stuff. It's hard to know exactly where to start. So we'll start from Bereishit. We'll start from the beginning. It hit me this year on the 10th day of Av, which of course this year was came out on the 10th. It's really the 9th, the fast. It really hit me. A lot of things just came clear. We see that during the first exile, the second exile, and the third exile, which I'll explain exactly how we get to the three, we see that the ingredient that brought upon destruction to the Jewish people was a certain lack of trait, which the trait is standing up and making a stand. Because there was a lack of standing up and making a statement, making a stand, making it clear where you stand, the Jewish people and the various individuals, as we'll get into details shortly, suffered a tremendous price of the destruction of two temples. So let's take it from the top. In the times of the exile of Egypt, there were three advisors to the Pharaoh. The first one was Bilam, the wicked. The second one was the righteous, Yitro. The third one was Iyov. Now, let's get it straight here clearly. The Gemara in the Masechet Bava Batra, the Gemara makes many comparisons to who? To Abraham, Avram Avinu. We're talking about a tremendous person. One of the few people that are called straight out a God-fearing person. A God-fearing person. So there are comparisons. The Talmud is looking to see who is greater, Abraham or Iyov, Job. So it's not such an easy question. A tremendous person. And comes the judgment day. Where's Billy Jack when you need him? Come the judgment day. On the bloody morning after. Comes judgment day.
Judgment.
See, I talked about bloody day and Gewalt. So anyways, Pharaoh asked, there's a Jewish problem, what do we do to solve it? So Bilam says, blow away the Jewish people. Yitro says, don't touch the Jewish people, leave them alone. He was forced to escape for his life. After he stood up, and we've talked about this in previous classes, a person could make a mistake to think that he just kept quiet. So what's the difference between him and Iyov? So we have to understand that according to most opinion, he spoke up and then he was forced to run away. That was the sequence of events. Now, Eov, as we mentioned about a month and a half ago, very interesting, he thought to make things better for the Jewish people, he would keep quiet. He figured that if he spoke up, they might not listen to him eventually, and this way maybe the Jewish people would just be subjugated to slavery, which means there are sources that say that Eov came to save the Jewish people because he understood that Paro was leaning towards accepting what Bilam said to kill the Jewish people, and the savior of the Jewish people had come in. Who's that? Eov. He's coming in to save. He says, you know what you should do? You should subjugate the Jewish people to become slaves, and this way at least they'll stay alive. Wow, he's the savior of the Jewish people. They have specialized in Israel. They have specialized people in this field. They're called in Hebrew limager nizakim. Their job is to be in the government. Their job is to be in the coalition and just try to make things a little bit better. Okay? There's like certain people that's how they look at their lives, just to make things a little bit better. Think about what happened. Think about what happened. Because Eov did not make a stand. Either, number one, he kept quiet and he suffered, and then he started screaming. He didn't keep quiet too long. As soon as he began to suffer, man, he was crying out. Or number two, according to other sources that we have in the Torah, he did speak up, but he tried to save the Jewish people to make things a little bit better by having them being slaves. Thank you very much. Well, it's just great being slaves, 210 years, 86 of them being hard labor, just really...
So Abraham was relieved when we were told they were going to be enslaved?
Okay, but once again, that's a whole different subject. It's a whole different subject where we understood that, according to many sources, that if the Jewish people, why was Abraham calm, cool, and collective? The reason why that Abraham understood that the exile could be within Eretz Yisrael. We could have been, as many commentaries say, we could have stayed here in Eretz Yisrael, and we would have been under the government of a certain nation here, or few nations that lived here, and that's that. So when you see something like that, a person's living in some kind of, you're in your own land, but you're not independent, etc. Okay, so that's what he saw. That's what he was relieved. Okay, of course, if Abraham would have seen what was going on with the Jewish people, what was going on, he would be tremendously, he wouldn't be so thrilled about it. And even if we look in the words, it says at that moment, Eimach HaShecha, he was in tremendous fear, what he saw. So he wasn't going to be too thrilled. So either certain sources where he did keep quiet. What I mean when I say he kept quiet, if we look at the Torah description of what happened in Sodom. In Sodom, Abraham comes and he starts arguing with Hashem. He's going back, he's ping-ponging it on the table. Okay, 50, 45, 40, okay, yeah, 30, 20, rolling down. How come he didn't say anything? How come he didn't say anything when the Jewish people were being sold down the tubes, for 400 years? Why didn't he say anything? That's really what Lewis was asking over here, and we talked about this, if not mistaken, and go back to one of the previous, we talked about this at length, why Abraham did not stand up and try to argue with Hashem to annul this point. But anyways, getting back to our subject, so Eov either he kept silent and he was punished because of the fact he didn't make a stand, or he made a stand, but it was a kind of a sit-down kind of stand. He's trying to, he didn't really say what he believed. He didn't go all the way out. So, number one, because of this, the Jewish people suffered tremendously. Exile number one in Egypt. Number two, now this just came to me this year when I was learning on Tisha B'Av. Therefore, Okay, the Jews at that time, the time of the first temple, they were tremendous merchants in two fields. Field number one was tchelet, the blue, what we use for our four-cornered garments, for our tzitzit, tchelet. And the second thing that they were experts in was shemen afar simon, was a afar simon oil, special oil. They were the only people that knew how to run those kinds, how to do that, because it's not, as we know, it's not a simple thing to process tchelet. You know what I'm saying? You have to go out you have to know what you're doing. You have to go to the beach and you have to bring it in, etc. It's a whole process. Also, with this special oil, you have to know what you're doing. For example, lehavdil, but not my wife took a year or two course in how to make oil, how to make certain oils. A year or two course of that. So the Jews only knew how to do those things. So they brought them back, and they wanted to bring a leader, but he would not be a leader that would be a threat to them, which means he would not be from the family of Judah. So they brought in Gedaliah ben Achikam, who was a leading kind of leader type, but he was not going to pull a Nebuchadnezzar had quote unquote, he had gone through two revolts here, so he wasn't into a third one here. So that's how he picked his people. So this was, get it, this was our hope of coming back and becoming, God willing, coming free back to our own land. This was our hope. The Jewish people that remained there, that were brought back, this was our hope, to shortly, in a day, in a year, 10 years, whatever it might be, but we are the remnants of the people of Israel. We will begin, the next commonwealth, begin the next temple. So this was the great hope. Now, 52 days go by. 52 days go by, and a military figure, if I'm not mistaken, his name is Yochanan. Yochanan comes up secretly to Gedaliah, and he tells him, listen, there's this Jew who lives on the east side of the Jordan. His name is Yishmael ben Netanyah. He's a Jew, and he is jealous of your position. He thinks that he should be the ruler over the people, and he has come and he wants to kill you. So, being a tremendously righteous person as Gedaliah was, he immediately closes his ears, because, as they say, Lashon Hora Lamed Hey, go to hell the easy way. There's all kinds of stuff. So, he puts his fingers in his ears, as the Gemara tells us in Ketubot. The reason why HaKadosh Baruch Hu made our fingers in such a fashion is because, if you've ever noticed, it fits right into your ears. If you've ever been to a wedding lately, you'll see people over the age of 25, they have their fingers up their ears, because they can't take the noise anymore in the wedding halls. Check that out next time you go to a wedding, you'll see what I'm saying. So anyways, we all know that's why HaKadosh Baruch Hu, so we wouldn't hear Lashon Hara. So he was a tremendously righteous person, and maybe he was a descendant to come to the Chavetz Chaim. He didn't want to hear about it. But Yochanan kept on persisting. He said, listen, it's a serious threat over here, and I'm willing to put myself at risk. Listen to this, folks. I'm willing to put myself at risk. I'm willing to kill and eliminate Ishmael ben Netanyah. Now, it's really amazing that even though we've changed the location, we're not going to give details where we really are. I told you it's an illegal class here during this time of the year. So we're not going to give details where we really are. But anyways, folks, I'm impressed here that people still are sitting down. They haven't fallen off their chairs. It's really an amazing thing. They haven't put on a seatbelt here. It should ring a bell to the second temple. It rings a bell that there was a chance to blow away this guy. Just blow him away. and save the Jewish people, and it was not done. Once again, this to me was really amazing. This is stuff that I learned on this past year, 2 days ago, on the fast. This was, I was looking up different Chazal, etc., and I'm seeing this right in front of me. I cannot believe my eyes.
He was from Shevet Yehuda also, right? The person that wanted to replace.
Ken, for sure.
So he really would have been a more rightful heir to the throne.
Quote unquote, yeah. He was a real nice kind of guy. Yeah. Anyways, so that's why he felt it was, his position, and they took his position from him. Okay. Gedaliah does not listen, and therefore every year we have the fast on the third day. On the third day, if we count, I spoke about 52. Now, not for now, but this is really an amazing number. There are certain numbers in the Torah, like 40, that when you talk about redemption, you talk about exile, 40 keeps on coming back to you. 52 is also a number like that, 52. So many years ago, maybe 12, 13 years ago, we had a class on, in Karnei Shomron, we had a class on the number 52. It was how long ago? Yeah, 15 years ago. Now Israel is 67, so yeah, 52nd year of the state of Israel. Okay. Anyways, or Mike would say, it's been how many years since 67? 48? Yeah, right, 48. So we're coming close on the 52. Not going to get into it, but anyways, if you take the time from the 9th of Av and you get to the Rosh Hashanah, count the days. Very interesting. 52. That's how long we made it in Eretz Yisrael. 52 days after the exile, and that's all she wrote. So once again, we had an opportunity to blow away this Jew, and it was not done. Gedaliah ben Achikam. Every year we learn the lesson again that when somebody, you have to have respect for people, but you also have to cover yourself. You have to guard yourself. Keep your guard up at all times. So he did not do that, and till this day we know that this was the last hope of coming back, doing something in Eretz Yisrael. This was what the halacha writes in Shulchan Aruch. If we look up on 580 in Shulchan Aruch Orach Chaim, we'll see there those words, that this was the last remnant of the land of Israel and a chance of coming back. So that was eliminated right then.
Through Gedaliah.
Through Gedaliah, that was our chance.
Even though he was just a pawn, and he wasn't of the right lineage.
Right. He was tremendous tzaddik, and this was our chance to build ourselves up again, etc. And we lost that one. And of course, the rest is history. The rest is more known. As far as the second temple is concerned, we'll just get a little bit more detail in right now. As far as the second temple is concerned, we have the famous case of Kamsa Ubar Kamsa. We have the same famous case. The previous years we've taken different angles. I'm going to go back to the traditional angle of Kamsa Ubar Kamsa, and we'll take it from here. Listen closely. Okay, the same exact ingredient in which was prevalent in the times of Egypt with Eov, where he did not stand up. He did not have the courage to get up and stand up and say his word. Do not touch the Jewish people. He did not do that. And how much we suffered because of that. He could have changed the whole thing around. As we said many times, there's all kinds of exiles that we could have gone through. Not what we went through. 10,000 Jewish babies being killed in the Nile by, I guess that's why they call it annihilated. I never thought about that. Nile, where they threw 10,000 Jewish babies in that Nile, annihilated.
Yeah, the annihilation.
Yeah, Gewalt. Okay, so let's go. Let's move it up. Let's go back to that Kamsa Bar Kamsa, and now for the sake of heaven, he's playing the game, etc., even though his intentions are all pure for sure. But he still plays the game. And we know that he was punished for that. That's a whole shiur, it's a whole class within itself, the participation of Aaron. But even so, after all is said and done, after the fat lady is already sung, Moshe Rabbeinu cries out, Mi Hashem Elai, who's coming with me to do something about the situation? Where are all the Jewish people? One tribe out of 12 stand up, and that's Levi, the smallest tribe. They're 22,000. We have a lot of people. It must be from the Levis here or something.
So your crew.
Must be from the Levis here. Okay. So folks, according to the way I understand the Maharshal brings down that the sin of the golden calf is still present at this time, and we're still being punished for it because of the fact that just like the rabbis sat down at the meal, where the meal of Kamsa or Bar Kamsa, and they didn't say anything. They didn't protest what was being done to this poor guy, right? This poor guy Bar Kamsa, he comes up to this rich man, is saying, listen, get out of my house, I'm going to throw you out here. Listen, don't throw me out. I'm willing to pay for my portion. He says, no, I'm throwing you out right here in front of everybody. The rabbis are sitting there and looking on. Nobody gets up and says anything. No one gets up. He says, listen, I'm willing to pay half. Okay? I'm willing to pay the whole meal. Think about that. Anybody that has done any kind of a party or any kind of event, you know how expensive those things are? I mean, Baruch Hashem, I just had, my son was married, and, I'm not going to get here on the camera and tell you how much we spent, but, and we're like simple folks. You can imagine what high society people are spending. But we're just simple folks, and it's a lot of money that you put out. So here's some guy who's offering you, Mr. Bar Kamsa, he's offering you to pay for the music, pay for the waiters, pay for the mashkiach, the guy who makes sure everything's kosher, pay for the people that the decoration crowd, and everything. He's willing to pay for the whole, thing. It's an amazing thing, and he refuses it. Where are the rabbis? Listen to the answer of the Maharshal. Listen to the answer of the Maharshal. He also gives. He says, where were the rabbis? Why didn't they get up? Why didn't they say anything? Why didn't they protest? What was happening? What does he say? On the same page in the Talmud, Gittin 57, unbelievable Torah. He says, why didn't they stand up? Because there was another sin prevalent at the time of the Second Temple. It wasn't just baseless hatred. There were many sins prevalent. And one of them was Chanupah. One of them was, how do we translate it to English? Help me out over here. What?
Complacency, maybe?
False flattery, like misplaced flattery.
When we try to flatter somebody in order to get a few points with him, maybe get a job, or maybe have him like us, maybe have him smile at us, false flattering.
Kissing up?
What? No, I know a few words that I can't say, here in a holy place like this.
Yeah.
But okay, I know a few words, but we're not going to get into those words. So, right. So he writes here, where do we see this?
Yeah, flattery.
He's flattery, right?
Misplaced flattery.
Misplaced. Okay, so what does the Maharshal write? He writes, we know if we open up right now, if we open up our Mishnahs and we open up our Gemaras, our Talmuds to Sota, the seventh parak on the 41st page, a tremendous thing there. It says that the Jewish people, when did HaKadosh Baruch Hu decide to destroy the Jewish people, so to speak? When did Hashem decide to destroy the Jewish people? At an event with Agrippus. Agrippus, not Agrippus Street in Jerusalem next to the Ben Yehuda market, but Agrippus. What happens is, like this year, we're at the end of the 7-year cycle, the end of the Shemitah cycle, and then into the 8th year, after Sukkot, there's a tremendous tremendous event. It's called Hakel, which means gathering up the Jewish people. And the leaders would stand up, the king would stand up, etc., the Kohen Gadol, and they would start, for example, the king would start reading from the book of Deuteronomy, the Dvarim. He would start reading from the beginning till Shema Yisrael. And once he got to Shema Yisrael, he would start skipping various portions and reading them to the entire community that is gathered near the temple at the time. So he gets there and he's reading these verses in Deuteronomy, and he gets to the verse that when you have a king, he has to be Jewish on both sides. He has to be also from his father has to be Jewish, and his mother has to be Jewish. You can't have a person which his mother is Jewish, but his father is not. And with Agrippus was from his mother's side, he was Jewish, but not from his father's side. His father's was not Jewish. So therefore he could not be king. So he got to the verse which says you're not allowed to put a stranger, a foreigner, on the Jewish people to be king. And he started crying. And the Jewish people yelled out. Okay? They yelled out, "You are our brother. You are our brother. You are," 3 times. 3 times they said it. And the Talmud says when they gave this false, misplaced flattery, he's not allowed to be the king of Israel. When they gave him this misplaced, this wrong flattery in order that he should in order that he should befriend us and not get upset with us. So this is what the Maharshal writes. This was prevalent at the time of the Second Temple. So the rabbis stood, and they sat, and they continued to sit. Okay, maybe that's why they call these places yeshivas, because they sit a lot. They continued to sit, and they did not protest what was happening with Kamsa Bar Kamsa. Why? Because during this time, this guy who threw the party, he was a real well-to-do person, and you don't want to make waves. Sometimes you're connected, your institutions are connected to governments or to various people, to various donors. I always love the story. Okay, the one story you could really, put your pride, put your head up high. Story goes, true story, heard it firsthand. After Rav Yitzchak Ginsburg, Shlita, put out a booklet on Baruch Goldstein, Zecher Tzadik Livracha, what he did in the city of Hebron, a donor called up, and a person who used to give him thousands and thousands of dollars, if not mistaken, maybe it's $60,000, the amount I'm not sure, but something into like tens of thousands of dollars. And he said, listen, if you don't you retract your support, then I'm going to have to stop donating to your yeshiva. At that time the yeshiva was in Shechem, in the city of Nablus, in the tomb of Joseph. Today, of course, we're not there anymore. So he said, okay, you don't have to send your donations. And I mean, that's a rare, in our times, that's really, that's putting your, how do they say, put your money where your mouth is. That's really putting your money where your mouth is. So this is a tremendous example. Anyways, so we see here that this was a problem. And there's still a way to save the Jewish people. Now, get it again, okay? We have the first exile in Egypt. It was fueled by Eov not standing up and going along the lines of Yitro, taking Yitro's side. He didn't want to do that. He didn't want to endanger himself. He thought he was doing good for the Jewish people, make it a little bit better for them. So he didn't stand up. That's Egypt exile. Afterwards, the Babylonian exile. We talked about Gedaliah, and he did not stand up. And they told him that someone was going to come and kill him. He could have saved the Jewish people from being exiled. The last remnant, the last hope of independence in Eretz Yisrael, he was the last one. And once again, he didn't stand up and, take the platform. He did not stand up. He had an opportunity to kill Yishmael ben Netanya. He had an opportunity to kill him and eliminate the threat. He did not do that, and he was killed instead. He goes now to the Caesar of Rome. He goes out to Caesar of Rome. There's still a chance to save the day. There's still a chance. Even though the rabbi stood, the rabbi sat there, and they did not protest. There's still a chance to save the show. Okay, it's right. It's the last, it's the last inning. It's the bottom of the ninth. There's two guys out.
According to the other commentary on the Gemara, it's also, according to Rashi, the Anava of...
There's an opportunity to save the Jewish people still. And now it's Rav Zechariah. Okay, they come up to Rav Zechariah ben Avkulus, and the Kohanim ask, listen, we have a problem here. There's the Caesar sent a sacrifice here, and it has a blemish, but according to Jewish law, it's okay for a Gentile to do that. As long as it's not missing a limb, it's okay. And here it wasn't missing a limb, and all of a sudden, Rav Zechariah gets up and says, listen, no way. What will people say? People will think that you're allowed to sacrifice. Jews will think that they'll learn a lesson, that just like they accepted this sacrifice, they don't know if it's from the Caesar or not from the Caesar. They'll just think that you're allowed as Jews also to bring in sacrifices which have these blemishes. For a Jew, it's not permissible. But for a Gentile it is. But they'll make a mistake. So we can't do this. Sometimes we get into our lives, we get into a little bit of frumkeit, as the great mashkiach of our generation, Rav Shlomo Wuba Zecher Tzadik Kadosh Livracha, would say. Sometimes we get a little bit on the frum side where we shouldn't be on the frum side. And here Rav Zechariah is getting a little on the frum side. So he says we can't sacrifice it because, we're going to have people might mistake the halacha. Listen, but it's a danger. If we don't accept the sacrifice, Jews might be killed. Okay, listen, we don't want, it's frum now. Now we're in the frum mode. Okay, that's not important right now. What's important is the frum mode. And then they say, okay, so we're not, let's kill Bar Kamsa. Let's at least kill him because he's endangering the Jewish people. And Rav Zechariah gets one more frumkeit coming your way, like, boom, one more, and saying, listen, people will think that the halacha is that if a person caused a blemish in an animal, they have to be killed. People are not going to know the whole story. Well, there's a whole story here, and Bar Kamsa, he was in a party, and they're not going to know the whole story. They're not going to know the whole story. And they're going to think that you could kill somebody, but listen, he's going to go, and he's going to kill. We're going to be destroyed over here. It's our last chance. It's our last chance. Blow him away. And it says because of his improper, out of place, not at the proper time,
misplaced humility.
Misplaced humility. The temple was destroyed. And listen to this. Hundreds of years before, the Talmud says, the Talmud by the Tanaim, the rabbis then, say the reason why Jerusalem was destroyed and the temple was destroyed was because of Kamsa Bar Kamsa. But that's not so. Hundreds of years later, in the times of the Amoraim rabbis, they don't say that. They say because of Rav Zechariah. They had hundreds of years to think about it. And the Amora, Rav Yochanan, I'm pretty sure, he's an Amora. He has had hundreds of years to think about what happened there. Okay? It's not like, okay, we're all in pressure now, we have to make a decision, and we can't think straight. Hundreds of years have passed. And his conclusion is, it's Rav Zechariah, not Kamsa Bar Kamsa. As we said, it could have been saved. Even at the last minute, even with Kamsa Bar Kamsa, he could have saved the show. He didn't save the show.
So there's two views here. I mean, the Marsha it's clearly saying a different view. It's saying that the reason is because of the rabbi is being silent when counsel is being thrown. Could it be that both of these things, in other words, either you have to kill counsel or you have to treat him nice under that circumstance when he was embarrassed? They can't both be. They can't both be true.
No.
They both have the same bottom line, that it's because we didn't protest. But not protesting what? That we were too nice to him or too mean to him.
Okay, once again, we're talking about here is at that party, okay, according to, once again, the take that we're going on today, we're taking it very simple level, is that the rabbi sat down there and they did not protest, and they should have gotten up and said something. They should have got up and said something, and they did not. So Bar Kamsa was tremendously affected. He was tremendously embarrassed, and he decided that he's going to go out and he's going to get back at the Jewish people.
The destruction could have been averted by not further embarrassing this guy when he was trying. But at the same time, and at a later date, the destruction came because we didn't kill him.
Right. Because he changed his, he changed his hat. At the time of the party, okay,
No, but he was evil.
Well, but once again, Mike, we have to try to separate. I know where you're going to. We've been there before. In previous years, we talked about that. There's definitely a side on that. But we have to take for the fact that, here's who he is, and there was a tremendous sin that was done against such a person, and when people are hurt, people do things that they would in regular circumstances they would not do that, but they're hurt. I once heard a great line. There's two situations where we're not thinking. Once is when you're in love. You sometimes see a bride and a groom, they like jump in water. But I don't understand, but you have these tuxedos on and water's not good for them. But they're not thinking, and when we get upset. So when we get upset, we're not really thinking, and we do things that later on in life we're really sorry that we did that. Okay, one last point. One last point here. At this time, we know that this coming Shabbat is called Shabbat Nachamu. It begins 7 weeks of Haftarot. After the Torah reading, we talk about consolation. 7 weeks. That's how long we need to be comforted. 7 weeks. Right? We had 3 bad weeks. For those 3 bad weeks, we now have double that, 7 of the comforting. The Megillat Eicha, Lamentations that we read on Tisha B'Av, which we read a few days ago, talks about traitors. It talks about traitors. All our friends became traitors. And if we look back into the short period of history, we see that this trait of traitors continues on. The Torah teaches us that after you've gone through a destruction like we've gone through on the 9th day of Av, Hashem gives us 7 weeks of comforting. After what we've gone through, 7 weeks of comforting, 7 times what we went through of suffering, we receive comforting. That's what we need to come back to ourselves. We need 7 times that. So think about this one. 10 years ago, exactly to the day, almost. 10 years ago, on the Tisha B'Av. Think about this one also. The original, those that know what's going on in the news, the original date that was decided for the expulsion of Gush Katif 10 years ago. Does anybody remember the original date? It was the 70th day of Tammuz. The Tisha B'Av. They don't know anything.
Wow.
So for them it was the regular day. Only somebody later told them that you can't do it, it's going to look bad. So what was the next day? Right after Tisha B'Av. Well, that looks much better now. You know, it looks much better. So that's when they decided. So think about it. They made this tremendous, I'm not going to go into right now, was it on purpose or not? It's not my intentions right now. I'm not interested right now to go into it, whether it was intentional or not. It doesn't matter right now for the sake of this subject. But at least they made a tremendous mistake. It's pretty clear, unless you're blind, to see what happened. We left that area, and now they're shooting from the same areas that we left. We're getting attacked in Rishon LeZion, in Tel Aviv, in Haifa, and all these places. It's clear that it was a tremendous mistake. Okay? So what do? 10 years later, these traitors, what do? They're throwing people out of Beit El. Throwing people out right after Tisha B'Av. It's like amazing. Like if they have to pick, you know, everyone today they're always worrying about PR. But on this subject, they're not worried about PR. All the time, Gush Katif, when was it? It was on Tisha B'Av. It was right after Tisha B'Av. Their first day that they picked was Shiva Asar B'Tammuz. Wow, this is really great. And they don't have what the Torah teaches us, that after such a tremendous destruction, Hashem comes by and says, I'm going to show you the way. After a person's gone through this, I'm going to give him 7 times the amount of comforting that they suffered. But here, in the state of Israel, we don't have that decency. We don't have decency. After the tremendous mistake, they come and they use pepper spray on kids. And we haven't learned any lesson here. We haven't learned any lesson. The traitors, the traitors. There's a cafeteria. There's a restaurant. It's called Cafe. And they were just fined 35,000 shekel. Why? Because they preferred to use a Jew instead of using an Arab. They said we prefer to use a Jew as a waiter. So they were fined.
It was in the kitchen. He was in the kitchen because they offered him actually a job. They said, you can be a waiter. And he said, no.
I want to be in the kitchen.
I want to be in the kitchen.
So the way that I saw it in the paper was that he even if it was a kitchen, so then there would be more leniency. But anyways, if we see what's going on, a so-called prime minister promises. What a joke! Whoever believed that? I remember in Beit El, people that came to fight against, when the neighborhood of the school there that was eliminated by the army, by the government, a couple of years ago. They were promised that there would be 200 or 300 new units, and people that came to fight were beat up, literally beat up. And how sad it is to show that they were the ones that were right. And the traitor who promises has renegated that promise. He promised 200, 300 units in Beit El. And now they're taking down. Not only are they not building, but they're taking down. He's talking about a freeze. No more building in Judea and Samaria. All these traitors. So we have in our times, we have previously, the headline of the destruction of the temple, the headline of the Megillat Echad, Lamentations, is that our friends, people that, think about it, how many good Jews wasted their time to try to make sure that a right-wing government got into power? How many good Jews wasted money, time, energy to make sure that these traitors would get into office, so they could all of a sudden now we have on the chopping block, we have Beit El, we have Ofra, we have Amona, we have places in the hilltop of Ronen, near Har Bracha, and the list goes on, and who knows how many more.
Even here.
Who knows how many more?
Here.
Right here.
Yeah. The same houses over there are part of Yisuf.
We have to understand the last point over here. The last point here is to understand that the traders don't end in the Likud. The traders don't end also within our camp. Also within our camp, after so many destructions and so many communities have been destroyed, the so-called leaders, okay, which are traders, so-called leaders, have not had the decency to provide those few that come out to try to really fight against the destruction and the expulsion. They come out to really fight. They aren't even given defensive equipment. The police come there, they're from head to toe, they're covered. They have their helmets, they have their masks, they have their little shields, and they have their etc. And we don't have any problem. We don't have any problem that these kids that take their time and their money and give it all, and we don't even have the decency, and no one even thinks about it, how they could allow people to be put in such a situation, because it's not going to look good. They're worried about, these traders are worried about it's not going to look good for us. If we put people in defensive gear, how's it going to look for us? Not going to look too good for us. You know, we want to show that we're the sacrifice. We're the people that are getting beat up. The more we get beat up, the better it looks for us. That's what they're